日本经常被外国人称为阳光之国、樱花之国，这是因为游客通常只访问该国的东部和南部，那里的气候终年温和。在西北海岸，冬天很长，从12月到3月或4月，地面经常被雪覆盖。在我的家乡越后省，冬天通常以大雪开始，雪下得很快很稳，直到只能看见我们茅草屋顶上厚厚的圆脊杆。然后一群群苦力扛着草席，戴着看起来像雨伞的大编织帽，用宽大的大铲从街道的一边挖出隧道到另一边。整个冬天，街道中央的雪都没有移走，它堆成长长一串，远远高出屋顶。苦力们会清扫台阶，因为整个冬天，他们每隔一段时间就堆起雪。我们这些孩子常常爬上去，沿着山顶跑。我们在那里玩了许多游戏，有时候假装自己是拯救被雪围困的村庄的骑士，或者是偷袭村庄的凶恶强盗。
A Daughter of the Samurai, Chapter 1. Japan is often called by foreign people a land of sunshine and cherry blossoms. This is because tourists generally visit only the eastern and southern parts of the country, where the climate is mild all the year round. On the northwest coast, the winters are long, snow often covering the ground from December to March or April. In the province of Ichigo, where was my home, winter usually began with a heavy snow which came down fast and steady until only the thick, round ridgepoles of our thatched roofs could be seen. Then groups of coolies with straw mats over their shoulders and big woven hats that looked like umbrellas came and with broad wooden shovels cut tunnels through from one side of the street to the other. The snow was not removed from the middle of the street all winter. It lay in a long pile, towering far above the housetops. The coolies cut steps, for they were carrying snow at intervals all winter, and we children used to climb up and run along the top. We played many games there, sometimes pretending we were knights rescuing a snowbound village, or fierce brigands stealing upon it for an attack.
但对我们来说，更令人兴奋的时刻是在下雪之前。当时整个小镇都在为过冬做准备，这总是需要花上几个星期的。每天我们上学放学的时候，都会停下来看苦力们穿着稻草做的冬装，忙着把街道两旁的雕像和小神龛包裹起来。我们花园里的10只灯笼和所有的树木和灌木丛都用稻草围起来了，就连寺庙的外墙也用竹篾或巨大的草绳编织成的网保护起来。每一天，街道都呈现出新的面貌。当寺庙台阶上的大狮子雕像被盖上时，我们已经成了一座由奇形怪状的稻草帐篷组成的城市，形状各异，大小不一，等待着雪 把我们埋在里面3-4个月。
But a still more exciting time for us was before the snow came, when the entire town was making preparations for winter. This always took several weeks, and each day, as we went to and from school, we would stop to watch the coolies busily wrapping the statues and small shrines along the streets in their winter clothing of straw. The stone lanterns and all the trees and bushes of our gardens were enclosed in straw, and even the outside walls of the temples were protected by sheets of matting fastened on with strips of bamboo or immense nettings made of straw rope. Every day the streets presented a new appearance, and by the time the big carved lions at the temple steps were covered, we were a city of grotesque straw tents of every shape and size, waiting for the snow that would bury us in for 3 or 4 months.
大多数房子都是宽屋檐的茅草屋顶，但街上的商店都是用石头压着屋顶，以防春天雪开始融化时发生雪崩。最重要的是，人行道延伸出一个永久性的屋顶，在冬天，人行道被直立的木板墙围起来，偶尔还会有一块油纸板，这就把人行道变成了长长的大厅。在最恶劣的天气里，我们可以在那里行走，完全不受风和雪的影响。这些大厅很昏暗，但并不黑暗，因为光线很好地穿透了雪地，即使在我们穿过雪地隧道的街角，也有足够的光线让我们读一些大好的字。很多次放学回家，我都在隧道里读书，假装自己是一个在雪光下读书的古代圣贤。
Most large houses have thatched roofs with wide eaves, but the shops on the streets have shrinkled roofs weighted with stones to prevent avalanches when the snow began to melt in the spring. Above all the sidewalks extended a permanent roof, and during the winter, the sidewalks were enclosed by walls of upright boards with an occasional panel of oiled paper, which turned them into long halls, where we could walk all over town in the stormiest weather, entirely protected from wind and snow. These halls were dim, but not dark, for light shines through snow pretty well. And even at the street corners, where we crossed through the snow tunnels, it was light enough for us to read good-sized characters. Many a time, coming home from school, I have read my lessons in the tunnel, pretending that I was one of the ancient sages who studied by snowlight.
Shigo 的意思是在山的后面。由于与 Kiso 山脉距离遥远，它与日本的其他地方是如此隔绝，以至于在封建时代早期，它被认为只是一个冰冻的前哨站，适合那些地位或影响力太大而不能被视为罪犯的罪犯流放。这个阶级属于改革家。在那个年代，日本对政治或宗教上的改革都是不宽容的。宫廷里一个特别进步的思想家或一个心胸开阔的僧人， 都会被打上同样令人讨厌的烙印，并被送到某个荒无人烟的地方。在那里，他的野心将永远被扼杀。大多数被送到狱后的政治犯，要么填满了刑场外小墓地的坟墓，要么迷失在农民的某个简陋家中。我们的文学作品中有许多关于一些富有且有名望的年轻人的悲惨故事，他们伪装成朝圣者，在越后的村庄里游荡，寻找他失去的父亲。
Ichigo, which means behind the mountains, is so shut off from the rest of Japan by the long Kiso Range that during the early feudal days, it was considered by the government only a frozen outpost, suitable as a place of exile for offenders too strong in position or influence to be treated as criminals. To this class belonged reformers. In those days, Japan had little tolerance for reforms, either in politics or religion, and an especially progressive thinker at court, or a broad-minded monk, was branded as equally obnoxious and sent to some desolate spot where his ambitions would be permanently crushed. Most political offenders that were sent to Ichigo either filled the graves of the little cemetery beyond the execution ground or lost themselves in some simple home among the peasants. Our literature holds many a pathetic tale of some rich, entitled youth who, disguised as a pilgrim, wanders through the villages of Ichigo, searching for his lost father.
宗教改革派的表现要好一些，因为他们通常一生都在默默无闻的人群中工作。一些新佛教教派的创始人被流放了一生，他们都是很有才能的人。渐渐的，他们的信仰逐渐传播开来，越后成为全日本著名的改革佛教据点。我从小就熟悉僧侣的故事，也看惯了那些刻在岩石上的图像，或刻在山边洞穴里的人物，这些都是古代僧侣们不知疲倦的双手所做的作品。
The religious reformers fared better, for they generally spent their lives in working quietly and inoffensively among the people. Some founders of new Buddha sects, exiled for a lifetime, were men of great ability, and gradually their belief spread so widely that Ichigo became known all over Japan as the stronghold of Reformed Buddhism. From earliest childhood, I was familiar with priest tales and was accustomed to seeing pictures of images cut on the rocks or carved figures standing in caves on the mountain sides, the work of the tireless hands of those ancient monks.
我的家在老城下町长冈，我们家庭成员包括我的父母、我尊敬的祖母、我的兄弟、我的姐妹 和我自己，然后是我父亲的首席仆人吉亚和我的护士医师，除了金和东师，其他几个老仆人不时来来去去。我有几个已婚的姐姐，除了大姐姐，她们都住在很远的地方，离长冈大约有半天的黄包车辆。她偶尔来看我们，有时我陪她回家，在她那大茅草农舍里度过几天。那是古时候的三山要塞，武士家庭经常嫁入仅次于军队的农民阶级，并备受推崇，因为拥有稻谷的人掌握着国家的生命。
My home was in the old castle town of Nagaoka. Our household consisted of my father and mother, my honored grandmother, my brother, my sister, and myself. Then there was Jia, my father's head servant, and my nurse, Ishi, besides Kin and Toshi. Several other old servants came and went in occasions. I had married sisters, all in distant homes except the eldest, who lived about half a day's jinrikisha ride from Nagaoka. She came occasionally to visit us, and sometimes I went home with her to spend several days in her big thatched farmhouse, which had been, in ancient days, the fortress of 3 mountains. Samurai families often married into the farmer class, which was next in rank to the military, and much respected, for one who owns rice villages holds the life of the nation in his hand.
我们就住在小镇边缘，一座巨大而杂乱的房子里。从我记事起，房子就不时地扩建起来，结果厚重的茅草屋顶在山墙连接处下垂，灰泥墙有许多凹凸不平的地方，许多大小不一的房间被狭窄弯曲的大厅连接起来，扭曲的方式令人意想不到。房子周围不远处是一堵由碎石组成的高墙，顶部是一堵低矮的实木栅栏，大门的屋顶有倾斜的角落，棕色的茅草上长满了苔藓。它由巨大的柱子支撑，木门之间摆动着带有装饰性铁铰链的木门，铰链延伸到厚木板的一半，每边都有一堵灰泥墙，墙上有一扇又长又窄的窗户，窗户上有几根木条。大门在白天总是开着的，但如果到了晚上，就会有人敲门，并叫着 Tanomo Tanomo Tanomo， 即使是熟悉的邻居的声音。吉亚也是如此忠于旧习惯，在打开大门迎接客人之前，他总是跑到这些窗户去偷看。
We lived just on the edge of the town, in a huge rambling house that had been added to from time to time, ever since I could remember. As a result, the heavy thatched roof sagged at the gable joinings. The plaster walls had numerous jogs and patches, and the many rooms of various sizes were connected by narrow, crooked halls that twisted about in a most unexpected manner. Surrounding the house, but some distance away, was a high wall of broken boulders, topped with a low, solid fence of wood. The roof of the gateway had tipped-up corners and patches of moss on the brown thatch. It was supported by immense posts, between which swung wooden gates with ornamental iron hinges that reached halfway across the heavy boards. On each side, there extended, for a short distance, a plaster wall pierced by a long, narrow window with wooden bars. The gates were always open during the day, but if at night there came knocking and the call, "Tanomu, Tanomu," even in the well-known voice of a neighbor, Gia was so loyal to old-time habit that he invariably ran to peep through one of these windows before opening the gate to the guest.
从大门到房子是一条由凹凸不平的大石头铺成的小径，宽阔的裂缝里长着我所见过的第一批外国花，茎短头圆的小东西，吉亚称之为巨人的纽扣。有人给了他种子，因为他认为没有哪一种外国花配得上我们花园的尊严，所以他狡猾地把它们种在了我们不尊敬的脚会踩到的地方，但它们是耐寒的植物，长得像苔藓一样茂盛。
From the gateway to the house was a walk of large uneven stones, and the wide cracks of which grew the first foreign flowers that I ever saw. Short-stemmed, round-headed, little things that Gia called giant's buttons. Someone had given him the seed, and as he considered no foreign flower worthy of the dignity of a place in our garden, he cunningly planted them where they would be trod upon by our disrespectful feet. But they were hardy plants and grew as luxuriantly as moss.